Okay, well, a very good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is James O'Connell, CEO and founder of the Hospitality Company, and we have the pleasure of having Cam Davies here from THC and the Fat Duck. Cam, thanks for joining us today for today's webinar.
No worries, thank you, James.
So Cam is our resident kitchen coach, and I'm the old hand who's been working with hospital owners for the last 25 years, helping them improve the performance of their business. And we are really looking forward to the two of us combining today to give you what we think is a very important message at a very important time in the hospitality industry. We have got rising costs and the challenges of making money from food and beverage in your business will only happen to those who run their businesses with the discipline required to be successful. For many years, the hospitality industry has probably survived a little bit on pretty good margin. And I'm certainly not saying in the last 10 years, but if you look 15, 20 or 30 years ago, the margin was there, particularly in beverage and pretty good in food. But the industry has changed enormously in the last 10 to 15 years. The challenges are upon you, and it's incredibly important that you step up to those challenges, and that means running a better business. So we intend to walk you through what is seeing our clients here at the Hospitality Company achieve probably industry-leading cost of goods margins in their business, how they go about doing, what the key steps are. And we are going to focus in on the key steps. It's not about giving you a list of 50 things to impress you about how much we know. It is about giving you a few things that if you were to implement those over the next 3 to 6 months, will have the biggest impact. And many of you would have heard of the Pareto principle. We believe in that here at THC, and we're going to focus on teaching you in that way today. So topics for today's session. First of all, we're going to have a quick chat about what menu engineering is so you understand the language. Then we're going to look at systemization and software, the costing journey, and here Cam's journey, getting focused on the most important things that will move the dial in terms of your gross profit or lowering your cost of goods. We're going to discuss tendering, which is an art that very, very few hospitality businesses are doing, and it's costing you margin. So we'll look at that. And then hopefully we'll have time for a Q&A at the end of the session. So that's how it's going to roll today. We want to apply with a couple of very important statements that we make all of the time to our coaching clients and the industry when we are talking to them. And it starts with these 2 points. This is the first slide. One is you cannot be financially successful, therefore successful in the hospitality industry in New Zealand or Australia or any other country for that matter, without applying what we say is rigorous financial discipline in your business. Rigorous financial discipline. No, we're not too bad. That's just not going to work. It is about applying a level of focus and rigor into the financial aspects of your business. And for many of you, whether it be creating food or designing the layout and look of your restaurant, cafe, and bar, you are passionate about that. You put vigor and attention and energy into these creative processes. However, for many that we meet, they do not apply not even half the amount of energy and focus into the finance that they do to the fun parts of their business that they enjoy. And we get that. We get that this area of your business may not be something that you consider fun or enjoyable, but the reality is you will not create a 15% net operating profit percentage or higher without applying rigorous financial discipline. Without asking the obvious, would you agree, Cam?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. And you've been on that journey, and we're going to hear about Cam and Selena's journey of going through this themselves and hearing a real world example of what that looks like. The second thing that we say here at THC is that you control the controllables. Focus on the internal drivers of success. It is very easy to get distracted by the external parts, whether they be government, whether it be the weather, whether it be, just the economy in general. It's very easy to get focused on that and allow that to be something that, hey, we can't do anything about it. So there's our reason why our business is not going well. We would encourage you to not fall into that trap and to focus on controlling the controllables. Our experience over a very long period of time is when clients focused on controlling the things they can, things go very well, instead of making excuses for the underperformance of the business due to what we'd say external factors. Now, of course, you have to be wary of those. Of course, they are something that you need to navigate and adjust to, but they can't be the number one reason why your business is not as successful as you can be. Our experience is if you control the things you can and do that rigorously with discipline and with the focus you should, things will go very well in your business. So we always do that intro to get the tone right when we have these sessions. So we're going to have a quick look into menu engineering and what it is. So this is how we describe menu engineering. It's a strategic process used by F&B businesses to organize, analyze, and optimize their menus to maximize profitability. So there's a bit in that. We're going to unpack that today, and you're going to see some of the key areas, both in the context of organize, analyze, and optimize their menus. But really, this should be a part of your focus. If you are a hospo owner and you have got a senior leadership team where you are not consistently discussing the menu engineering that is happening in your business, then you're totally you've got a whole bit of your business that should exist that doesn't exist if these conversations aren't happening. So it is really, really important that from a systems perspective, you are looking at menu engineering and asking yourself these questions of, are we organizing, are we analyzing and optimizing our menu for maximum profitability? There's lots more on that you can, I mean, you can go and do your own research if you want to really get in the weeds on all of the detail of that, but we're going to really address that today and show you what practically, not theoretically, but practically what menu engineering actually looks like. So that's what we're going to work through. Now, when we think about menu engineering, we also just want to get to the core of what it really is. And this is what we say here at THC, and this is what we coach, is that the goal should be to create a menu that is both popular and profitable. The items that you sell on your menu need to do both. If you've got profitable items that no one's buying, then that's not going to work for you. And if you've got items that are really popular, but you're not making a decent profit margin, that's not going to work either. And although that sounds simple, it is incredibly important. And here's the issue with this. Many of you listening today will know this here, which is you will know how popular the items you're currently selling on your food and beverage menu are. You will know how popular they are because you'll have a point of sale, which in 2 minutes you could find out what's popular and what's not. Now, if you're sitting there today going, well, we don't have a point of sale, well, that's a whole different conversation we need to be having. But I think majority of you will have some sort of POS, whatever that may be, and you should be able to go into the back of that system and look at last month, last 6 months, last year, and really see how popular those items are based on both purchases by way of number of items that you've sold, but also the dollar figure of how much that has generated. So if you're not doing that with rigorous discipline, that is the first thing you've got to do. You've got to be aware of what's going. And don't trust your gut. Don't trust your instincts on this. Go and look at the hard data because sometimes the hard data will surprise you if you're not looking at it all the time. And you should be looking at that all of the time, reviewing that with your management team and really asking the question, are we actually selling stuff that people want? Are we happy with this data? But this is where it gets interesting. That's only half of the equation, because the other half of the equation is to ask the question, how profitable are these items that you're selling? And this is where, unfortunately, the industry tends to fall over, because there is not that rigorous financial discipline around measuring profitability and how profitable that menu item is. You can't accurately measure this without a best practice stock management approach. And that is what Cam is going to get into today when we look at the actual activities of menu engineering. So if you looked at popularity and profitability as an axis and you are plotting where your menu item is, If you've only got one axis, which is popular, but you don't have the axes of profitability and you don't know how profitable things are, how could you plot that on a graph when you've only got one axis? So this is why the rigorous focus on implementing best practice stock management system is the key to you starting to get the numbers that you want when it comes to reducing cost of goods or improving your profit margin. Some of you will be doing that well. Some of you will be doing that, okay. But again, if we go back to that slide, it's applying rigorous financial discipline. So if you're there today going, we're sort of guessing some of it, we sort of have an idea, I've got a spreadsheet, or even I'm using software, but I don't actually know if those are accurate recipes. I don't know how up to date they are in terms of the recent costs for that dish. Then you can't really have that ability to understand both popularity and profitability, and that is what you've really got to get your head in the game. And just a side point on that, you should be doing a rigorous review of that at a minimum on a monthly basis, putting the menu through the gauntlet of plotting it literally on a graph to find out what is truly popular and truly profitable, and those that aren't, e.g. are not profitable and are not popular, you have to get them off the menu as fast as you can. So that is really setting the tone there for what we're going to look at today. So topic one, systemization and software. That's what we're going to talk about first. We're going to make a few statements today, and some of them will challenge you, but here's one. Costing recipes on paper or spreadsheets won't work. It never did. It never did. For many of you who may have owned businesses or managed businesses for a few years, I can tell you, people have been trying this game of costing on the back of a sheet of paper or even on a spreadsheet. Doesn't give you up-to-date data, and it's pretty close. They say it's not close. If you are not using robust software, it is always late. The information is always late, and most of the time it's not correct. So we've got to move away from this thing of, hey, we can just wing it and hopefully we'll get some good data. You won't, it will never be accurate. And when we're talking tens of thousands of dollars in profitability, you do not want to put that down to a very archaic way of trying to do cost of goods management. You have to get into 2025, and the only way to do that is through an investment in a stock management system. Now, Cam, I want to bring you in here in terms of a stock management system. I've got a bit of a list here, or we've worked on a list here of things that hospo owners should be thinking about when it comes to a stock management system. Can you just share with us what your thoughts are if people are here today going, right, they're telling me to get a stock management system, I'm going to stop doing the paper or the spreadsheets. This is a bit of a list. Could you talk to a little bit of that list about what's important?
Yeah, I mean, all those 5 things are probably equally as important. You need to have the ability certainly to pull out the POS integration so you can link your recipes through. So, I mean, as you alluded to, hospitality is one of the few industries where we don't really know what a stock item costs because the complexity is involved with it. But it's pretty essential that you do. So, every time that button is pushed on the POS, you really want it pulling through to your stock management. So it'll help align stock takes, and you've got that accurate data to go from. It also certainly needs to be able to have the ability to order and receive the stock in it. Again, if you want to get to the point where you're carrying out stock takes, you want to know what's come in, what's gone out, and what you've sold, so everything starts lining up. And like the real-time data is really critical, as you alluded to. Spreadsheets from the dinosaur era, they're valid for that single day and that hour, but all that information could be blown out the window tomorrow with some price increases on those items. So you really need to be receiving your goods into your system, knowing what that live pricing is, and then giving you that data. And then with that data, you need to have the ability to be able to make some decisions. So, whether you're looking at your menus, are your menus printed in-house, are they done externally? But how can you actually implement change once you have that data sitting in front of you? So, yeah, proven track record. I mean, you really want to go with a bit of software that somebody's recommending.
Yeah, great. Okay. So we'll put that first. This stuff's pretty obvious. I would suspect most of you, I would hope, although we don't know all of you here today, and thanks to everyone for joining us today. But we think most of you are either on that journey or you're there in that place with a stock management system. But if you're not, reach out to us and feel free after the session, and we're happy to give you some recommendations as well. Sorry, just to say as a reminder too, we will allow for, or we're going to hopefully allow for a little bit of time for a Q&A. If there's any questions that you want to ask Cam or myself during, please just head to the chat box, bang your questions in there, and if we get time, we will answer them in the session. If we don't get time, we'll give you details and you can follow up with an email and we can reply to you that way. Okay, great stuff. So the costing journey, you've been on this. It is a journey. We use that word. We chose that word specifically, didn't we? Because that's what it feels like, doesn't it? And you've been there and done that. So the question is, where do you start? If you're at the beginning of this journey and you're hearing this stuff for the first time, going, "Oh my goodness, I'm overwhelmed already," and we're only 10 minutes into the talk. Where to from here? So, hearing your story. Fat Duck, there you are. You and Selena earlier this year, what was that, last month? Winning Best Gastro Pub in New Zealand, was that correct, last month?
Yeah, last month. Yeah, it was pretty cool actually. So
outstanding.
Yeah.
So we're talking to a winner. And you've got the Fat Duck in TR now. Obviously, you've been a client of THC with me as your coach for a number of years now, and you've moved into our coaching team as a coach. So you've got the ability to look at all of this from the lens of both an operator, which you still are, in terms of a leader of your organisation with Selena, but also as a coach too, working with a number of hospitality businesses. So the journey that you've been on, can you take us back to sort of that? Perhaps that day one when you started coaching, not that this is focused on coaching, but obviously that's where I think the costing journey really began. Just give us the people listening some insights into that world, what that was like.
Yeah, I guess I still remember that day pretty clearly, to be fair, even though it was near on 5 years ago. But I guess I had that feeling when you were asking me questions about what our cost of goods were and our wages, not thinking going into the meeting that I had a good handle on it, but actually not really having accurate data in front of you. And then you just sort of laid it out in front of me, more in front of us in terms of, do we know what our things are costing? And that's when I was like, oh yeah, well, I got Excel spreadsheets and blah, blah, blah. And sort of left that session feeling definitely like I hadn't nailed it and had a lot of work to do. And I think that day we signed up to our first stock management system, Loaded Hub. And then, just started. I had a real drive to. I'm not one of these people that don't like to not know how to do something properly or not feel good in that area. So I had a real drive to make it a real focus. Like, we had turnover in our business, and turnover was probably papering over a few cracks. But essentially our numbers were pretty average. And we were making food that was popular and we liked eating and our customers loved, but it wasn't actually making us as much money as I thought it was. And pretty much every year I was pretty sick of going to the accountant every year and turning around in single figures of net operating profit and going, oh, how do we do this? And the accountant sort of turned around and going, well, you need to increase your prices, and not really, it was never coming from a structured point of view. It was just pretty ad hoc and very reactive. And the problem with sitting down with your accountant is there's probably been 16 or 17 months worth of operating done before you actually have that conversation. So when you talk about being reactive, it's extremely reactive. Just that drive of implementing that. It felt like a lot of work, but it was a huge focus. It was a lucky time for us. We implemented it in lockdown, so I had plenty of time to implement it. But regardless of whether we were open or closed, I probably still would have been waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning and inputting items, because I knew that that was the only way we were going to start making some actual money. And at that point of time in the world, it was actually pretty critical. We had to make sure that every single plate that went over the pass was going to make some margin, and good margin. Because, yeah, like well documented, COVID hit places pretty hard, and we lost over 50% of our revenue straight away. So I had a real drive in me to make sure we nailed that, because if we didn't nail that, I had these scary thoughts of just becoming another piece of data in the hospitality graveyard, and I certainly did not want that to happen. I'd seen some good mates go through that. I'd worked for businesses in my early years that didn't make it. And it's tough, and I didn't want to be another piece of data. So yeah, made it a real drive and a real focus. It's probably the only thing I focused on for at least a couple of months. And just stripping it back, when we reopened, it was about taking the team on a journey and saying, look, we can no longer just add bottles of flavors to pots, and we have to, scales is going to be our best friend, and a pen and paper, and we need to start measuring everything that goes in every single recipe, and we need to start yielding. And I remember the days we had notebook after notebook of recipes that had been costed out on paper, and then at night time I'd go back and I'd implement them into our stock management system. So lots of work, but had a real drive to do it. And in fairness, once I got it up and running, and I don't like to look back too much, but I wish I'd implemented it from day dot.
And I know you're going to mention this as one of your points. Yeah. So let's look at those. Really, really good to hear that. So you've given me a few key points which we've created some slides for here, and I just wonder if you could speak to those. So to give a more broader summary of what operators and managers should be doing here. So one is accurately costing your menu can be a little confronting. Can you just speak to that first?
Yeah. So after we'd gone through the journey of creating recipes, we then we got everything linked up to final plated dishes, and again, a set of scales in the plate, and literally measuring everything that goes on it, and then put it into the system, and then you put your sale price next to it, and then you work out the cost of goods on it, and some of the stuff I actually thought was pretty good. We had some pretty horrific numbers coming out, lots of stuff in the 30s, high 30s, some stuff in the 40s. So, again...
But that says you're talking about cost of goods percentage, yeah.
Yeah, cost of goods percentage. So, and we're a restaurant with quite a high labour content as well. Everything's made in-house, and a high service content. So when you start adding 30s and 40s, and you add another 30, 35, 40% worth of wages, probably at the time, we're not leaving much left at the end of the year. So a lot of hard work for very little gain. In fact, I probably would have been more profitable going to work for somebody else at that time. And again, they're all confronting things. But again, I had a real drive to turn that around. I didn't want to be another statistic, and really wanted to turn it around. So yeah, I was really surprised with some of the numbers that it shot at me, because I thought we were better than that, and I thought we'd costed it more accurately. But the cold hard truth of it is we weren't.
Right. Okay. Well, important lesson there. Number 2, we wish you had implemented the stock management system from the day we opened. Just talk to that.
Oh yeah, look, if there's any regrets, I don't like having too many regrets in life, but there'd probably be one of those. I wish we had had the information in front of us from the day dot, because I just look at, we probably missed 5 years of opportunity. In 5 years is half a decade, and the years go by pretty quick. So my point being to that from experience is, don't let another day go by. If you haven't got one yet, you need to get it. The sooner you get it, and the sooner you get it to a point where it's starting to work for you and give you the right data, the better off you'll be, because it is a journey. I'd probably say you'd be around that 3 months before you start, from the day that you purchase it to the day that you're confident that your whole menu is costed, implemented, and you're doing everything, would be 3 months if you're really driven and work really hard at it. If you're not, it could be longer. So, you know, there's no real time to waste. The sooner you can get it up and running, the better.
Right. Okay. Third point, it needed to go on a slow, steady price increase journey to bring things into line. I think this is a really important point here.
Yeah, I guess, so with some of that information on the axis, we had lots of popular items, but we had lots that weren't profitable. So we couldn't exactly just roll out an entire new menu. We had lots of favorites around that would become, over 5 years, become renowned for and popular. So we had to go on a journey around, okay, well, yeah, there's two ways we can do it. We can buy some of these things better, which we'll talk to later. But the other part is we had to be, you know, honest with ourselves and say we have to actually increase things. We were pretty terrible in the first 5 years at passing on increases. Most of them, in fairness, we just absorbed. You know, most of these big companies, these suppliers are running live stock management systems themselves. So when the pallet of fries comes in and that's a 10% increase, the next day it's a 10% increase to us. Restaurants don't really operate like that. You know, menus are often printed externally. You know, that 10% increase on the chips comes in and we just go, oh, we'll suck it up. Or we don't even know about it half the time. So, yeah, we needed to go on a journey of like keeping some of those menu items. So in some cases, we kept the menu item and introduced a small increase. So I'd recommend doing small increases on a more regular basis. So I think at the time we'd sat down and we're like, well, we need to do this strategically. So it might be every month or every couple of months we'd do just a small shift. Some other items we removed from the menu for a period of time and then brought back with a higher increase. So that's one way to do it as well. And then trying to buy better as well. But I mean, we probably needed to go on because we'd fallen so far behind through a lack of knowing what we were paying for our stuff and a lack of strategic increases. You know, we weren't even going with inflation in some cases, which is ridiculous. Now I actually sit in front of people and talk about it. So we had a bit of catching up to do, and it probably took us, you know, 18 months to 2 years to try and get to the right result where we were happy that we were actually selling popular and profitable food.
Right. Okay. Very good points. And your final point on this one, it's been one of the most rewarding projects I've done as a business owner. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so probably the two things I love as a business owner is, you know, one of them seeing your people grow and get better, and that's super rewarding. But this project of implementing stock management has probably been one of the most rewarding ones, coming from a place of selling averagely profitable food to a place of now knowing I know anything that goes over the pass, exactly what it costs on any given day, right throughout the year. And we've been that way for 4 or 5 years. Is extremely satisfying, because it took a lot of energy and a lot of headspace to get there. But everybody's bought into it, and it's a real shift because, you know, 20 plus years ago when I started in a kitchen, that certainly was never a focus. It was all about making tasty food that people enjoyed, but it was never really a key driver about making profitable food.
Yeah, and that we talk about that all the time, don't we? That, you know, the real skill of the head chef or the kitchen manager or the senior kitchen, or talking food here, is the ability to make popular and profitable food. But for most restaurants, cafes, and bars that don't have this focus we're talking about today, they're really just measuring their chefs by the quality of the food and the popularity of the food, regardless of whether it's profitable or not. And that does not bode well if that's the only measure, which has been the case for years, if it's the only measure that you're measuring the chef by.
Yeah, and I'm a numbers geek, so I love stats. So I love looking at, you know, every month or every week, looking at our numbers and seeing what's popular and what's profitable. And, you know, I love that side of the business. It's that's how I sort of fill my cup up. So yeah, for me, it's I love it.
And speaking of data, where were you? What would you have said your cost of goods on food would have been 6 years ago or 5 years ago, and what is it looking like now? What's the journey
Oh, I would have
in
said we
business
were anywhere between 30 to 35%, which probably at that time I thought was all right. And now we got a target in our business of 23% for this year. And the last month worth of data, we're hitting sort of anywhere between 20 to 22.
Yeah. So that's close to a 10% reduction in your cost of goods, and that has its immediate effect straight to your bottom line.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, right. Very good. Well done. Okay, so that was it. Just hearing, I think it's important that, as you're listening today, you want to hear real life stories, and that's what CAMS is. And obviously there's many other stories in our community, but it's great for Cam to share that with you. So just to show you that, it's challenging, but you got to do it. You've got to get through, and say, oh, look, but this is more important and this is more important. And we'll discuss at the end that this is important. If you're going to fall over in the next 12, 24, 36 months, this will be one of the reasons why. It won't be that the lighting isn't good enough. It'll be with something as big and as important as this. And as Cam and I say, we know it's not fun. We know it's boring stuff, but it's got to be prioritized. So let's talk about that. And how to prioritize. So this topic 3 is called getting focused. And we've got one slide that really sums this up when it comes to once you start implementing a stock management system, you've got this menu engineering approach in your business, and everyone is applying that rigorous financial discipline in the way you look at the numbers. Then we get down to this key slide, and this is this understanding that to move the dial the most on your cost of goods, it is to focus on the top 10 selling food items by quantity and the top 20 beverage items. If you focus your energy and effort rigorously on measuring those and making sure the cost of goods on these items are within the band or range that they need to be, you are going to get a healthy cost of goods percentage. So practically though, Cam, can you speak to that and tell us what that means?
Yeah, so I guess it's having that mindset of not treating every item on your menu as equal. That there is, the top 10 food items. It's about applying that 80-20 principle, where 20% of the activity produces 80% of the result. So by looking at the top 10 food items, if you want to make a shift in your cost of goods, the side of mashed potatoes that you're serving, that is 0.5% of turnover, is not going to have a massive increase, but those top main items that are probably sitting around 6-7% worth of weekly turnover are going to have huge shifts. So yeah, like weekly, our kitchen manager will take those top food 10 items and we'll discuss those, and we'll analyze the percentages on those every week. And again, we drive that through with our receiving as well. So those items, especially proteins, are looked at a bit closer. So we report on any increases of those that have come through, so we can be a little bit swifter at passing that on to the consumer as well, and making sure that we're not out of pocket. So yeah, there needs to be a focus within the business to be looking at the top percentage stuff. Because that's going to drive your biggest change, as if we implement some change into those items.
And would it be fair to say that the more accurately you measure cost of goods, therefore have accurate data that you can trust, the more you can get excited or passionate about doing this review, because you're reviewing accurate data?
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's not great when you're reviewing data that's unpleasant to read. Nobody enjoys that.
Or it's out of date or not accurate.
Yeah, exactly. So but it's really cool when you do review this data and you know that it's accurate, and you know that it's pulling through into your P&L sheet at the end of the month as well. That there's not huge differentials. You know you're on track. So yeah, it's awesome.
Right. So just to summarize there, so you and the your kitchen leader and your front of house leader, you are analyzing the top 10, top 20 on a weekly basis.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And that is not just a 30-second chat while you're walking around the restaurant. You are sitting down and really discussing it and analyzing it heavily.
Yeah, well, we've got both managers have got reports that they do each week, and there might be 10 items on that, and this is one of them, to go through those points, and then look at what's affecting that, and also forecasting what's coming up, or what could have some changes to where we're sat now. So it's not just about looking at what's happened; it's about also looking forward and going, okay, are the suppliers suggesting there's some increases around the corner? Is there supply tightening, and what can we do going forward, to sort of curb the impact that's going to happen on us?
Yeah. Now, as I hear you say that, some of the owners on here will be asking the question, am I meant to be doing all that activity? Am I meant to be doing the one actually doing that? What would your answer to them be? When they've got a head chef or they've got a restaurant manager, they've got a bar manager, a cafe manager, who should be doing this?
Well, the manager should be doing it, and I think it's about, if it's a priority, you'll make time to find it. I think too often in hospitality we prioritise all the operational activity, which we all consider more enjoyable and requires less headspace. But the fact of the matter is, we actually need to start carving out time out of our weeks, and also out of our managers' weeks, to start looking at what we're doing, and to be able to implement some change. So each manager ideally should be having a minimum of sort of, I don't know, 4 to 5 hours probably each week, looking at what's happened and planning for the week ahead. Otherwise, you're not going to get buy-in from your team, if you're the only one doing it, and it's going to be really, really difficult to implement change. So you need them to come along on the journey, because to get real change and to get real results, you need everybody from the head chef all the way down to the chef, the commis chef, to go on this journey of actually knowing what's happening, and costing our recipes and weighing everything. You can't implement change from your office chair.
Yeah, excellent, excellent point. Too right. Okay, you touched on our final topic here is on tendering, which is and has been a big deal for you. So you made the comment in our online program that buying well and systematically monitoring the prices you're paying leads to an increase of profit of 30 to 40K per million in revenue. So tell us about why tendering is important.
Well, it's massively important for a variety of reasons. First reason is, by setting a time frame around your tender, whether that's 8 weeks or 12 weeks, at least you're fixing the cost on those items for that period of time. So you can sit back and relax, that there's not going to be a lot of change. I think, again, you've got to focus on the top 10 or the top 20 items. I think for people doing their first tender, do 2 or 3, or 4. So just keep it pretty simple. But yeah, it has a massive change. So we started this process a couple of years ago. I think people get a bit scared off by tendering. It's generally left to big convention centres or places with really large volume. It probably took me 18 months of thinking about it and telling myself we weren't big enough to do it, to actually just doing it. And so I think if you can get over that hurdle first, I think the good thing about it from a supplier's point of view is if you can give them the data, and this is where you need a stock management system to help you out, because you really need to be able to go to them and say, look, we're buying, beef ribeye, we're purchasing 50 kilos a week. What's the best price you can give me? So the suppliers, they love that. They love the fact that you can actually tell them how much you're going to use a week. It gives them some confidence to go to their suppliers and buy certain amounts. so they can buy, they might buy a pallet of it because they might have 4 or 5 people, on that tender for the same price of that ribeye, which means they can get it cheaper, which means they can deliver you a cheaper price. They also know that they don't need their reps on the ground every week trying to sell it because they've confirmed that the fat duck's going to buy 50 kilos of ribeye every week for the next 12 weeks. So that work's done. They can then focus their time and energy in other areas. I guess for us as the venue, that we can be, if we're doing our top 10 or top 20 food items by dollar amount, then we can sit there pretty rest assured for a few weeks going, look, this is all set. It doesn't matter if butter's gone up 10%. These guys have committed to us to sell it to us for this price. So, I mean, when you're going through periods of change and lots of increases, you might not get 12 weeks, but you can certainly still put a tender up for 6 to 8 weeks. So, a supplier might turn around and go, look, butter's going to be really hard to commit to for 12 weeks because there's a lot of fluctuation, but I can do 6 or I can do 8. So it's about trying to be reasonable, having great communication with your supplier, giving them the information and essentially getting a better deal for us. We did our first tender 2 years ago, reduced our cost of goods immediately by 5%. And 5% on $500,000+ worth of product is a massive change for, I think it took me 3 or 4 hours. So if you're looking at bang for your buck, tendering is an outstanding return on investment.
Yeah, right. Fantastic. So just to summarize a little bit of that, we've got 2 slides here. So why should you tender first? Guarantee your price for a set period gives you confidence for pricing your menu, and supplier love guaranteed volume. I think you summarised those pretty well. And then just a wee bit on this one, how to pay the best price for your stock. Can you just maybe just talk to that for a moment?
Yeah, so certainly analysing what you're purchasing the most is the best way to do it. There's no point focusing on those things that are well down. You want to focus on the top.
If you've got a stock management system, being able to capture that data is very easy.
Yeah. So if you've got a stock management system, within a click of a couple of buttons and probably 10 or 15 seconds, you should be able to spit out a 3-month report pretty easily. I know in ours, it takes us next to no time to get that data to come through. Entering into contract pricing, well, essentially that's just committing to your contract. So having some T's and C's around what that needs to look like is important. Order and receive the same way with suppliers. So, you'd put that into your thing, but if you're sending your orders out through your stock management system, that's the easiest thing for you. Suppliers love us using their portals because essentially we do all the work for them, but it's not great from a best practice stock management process. And then we need to monitor those prices. You've got to remember suppliers are running probably 200 different price levels. It'll be purchase price plus 1% plus 2%. So there's so many different prices that they're running, and mistakes can happen even though you've got an agreement. So you still want to have that ability to be able to monitor that contracted pricing that you're getting in on a weekly basis. So again, the the system that we use, it's very easy to analyze that. And we carve out some time every week for our kitchen manager to be able to look at that and analyze that data. So we make sure that we are paying what we agreed on.
Yeah, right. Fantastic. Look, I'm really conscious of time. Look, any questions, the Q&A chat box at the bottom, you may wish to pop a question in there now for Cam and I to answer. If not, we are really happy for you to send us any follow-up emails. You can send that to info@hospitalitycompany.co and we can give you a steer if you are needing some help further from beyond what you have learnt today. So no questions coming through, that's okay. People might want to just do that on their own. So look, I want to just keep to time. So I want to say a very big thank you to everyone for attending today. For those of you that haven't worked with us before and you are new to us, please feel free to jump on our website and book a call with one of our coaching team. We've got great coaches across New Zealand and Australia who are experts in this area. And are really keen to help you. And you can book a free 1-hour coaching session with the coaches from our website. You can discuss this or any other topics that you are wanting to discuss to help grow your business. So please feel free to do that. And yeah, we want to say a huge thank you for being on the session today. So follow us up with an email if you've got any questions. But for now, Cam, thank you very much for today. There's some really valuable insights there. Keep it simple. Get your program in place. Focus on building your stock module around those top 10, top 20 items. And then once you get it up and running, be thinking about the tendering process to reduce those cost of goods down. So yeah, follow us up if you'd like more help. And we have recorded this today, so if you'd like a copy of the recording, please feel free to email us at info@thehospitalitycompany.co, and we're happy to send that on to you if you want to share that with some of you, the rest of your team that wasn't able to make it today. So Cam,
We've just had one question come through,
oh,
James.
sorry, didn't see that.
So, which is the best software for recipe management?
Right.
So, yeah, we recommend Loaded Hub.
Yes, Loaded, yep.
At THC.
Yep.
And yeah, it's really easy to create your recipes in there. But one thing you can do straight away, even before you get the software, which works quite well, is even on recipe cards, is just within the kitchen, is just actually yielding how much that product makes. Because you still need that data to input into your system to get it up and running. So that's something that you can implement literally straight away. Is just making sure that the chefs, once they've made that recipe, got a set of scales next to them and they can put a yield on it. That's pretty critical. So, but Loaded Hub, certainly recommended.
Great. Cam, listen, thank you very much for being part of the webinar today. Really appreciate your insights, and thank you everyone for joining us. And we'll talk to you soon, or get in touch with us if you'd like some further help. Thanks everyone. Have a great day and rest of your week.
Cheers, James.
Take care.